Florida Congressman, member of the House Freedom Caucus, Byron Donalds, joins me. Good evening, sir.
How you doing, Greta? Good to be with you.
Good to have you, sir. So I think I know your answer, but are you going to vote yes or no on this debt plan?
I'm voting no on the debt ceiling bill, Greta, and let's be very clear about why. This bill, where there's a lot of work that's gone into it, cuts $12 billion in the first year for what is estimated to be a $4 trillion raise. In my mind, that's just simply not enough in spending cuts to justify that amount of debt on the American people, on our country. And so I think that at this point, looking at this bill, I just can't support it. There are other pieces of this measure which I think just simply don't do enough. We could talk about the administrative pay-go that was put in there that the OMB director has the ability to waive. CBO's now come out with a report saying that some of the SNAP benefits are actually going to expand the program because of new eligibility standards in there. But at the end of the day, this bill cuts about $12 billion, and it actually sets into place the spending caps for the administrative state in a post-COVID world, at post-COVID levels. And I just think that's not where the American government should be, and it's not reflective, in my opinion, of the priorities of the American people.
In light of the fact, sir, that it's a divided government, you've got a Democratic Senate and a Democrat in the White House, what would you have done differently than what Speaker McCarthy did?
Well, look, if you're going to talk about what could have been done differently, that's difficult to say because there was only a handful of people that negotiated this deal directly with the president. My job is not to really comment on the negotiations and what happened behind closed doors. Is to represent my district. If you're going to ask me what I could be supportive of, I've been very clear. Getting the federal agencies back to pre-COVID spending levels. Everybody understands why we had to raise spending during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it makes no sense at all that the federal agencies like the SEC, the ATF, the FBI, the DOJ are now up 30 to 40% over what they used to be. There's no sense or reason for that. And I understand that Joe Biden's in the White House, but that doesn't mean that Joe Biden's idiocy should actually determine the fiscal approach for the nation. So I think you start there and you go and then you move after that. There's other things that we should have gone after in this deal that weren't able to be accomplished, but that's not something I know my district supports, and that's not something I support.
Do you wish or do you want all the members of the House of Representatives, or at least of the Republican Party, to vote no so that it fails? Would that be something that you would think would be productive and good for the country tonight?
Well, look, I do not want this measure to succeed because it does not help the country fiscally. Everybody's looking at the date, and obviously the narrative is we're going to default. And let me be clear, defaulting on the debt does cause problems in our bond markets that are serious. But what also causes structural issues in our financial system is Washington refusing to get its house in order. And that is an all of Washington problem, been that way for a very long time. And so when my voters sent me to Washington, they wanted me to come here to get this place back on track. And so I think this deal just simply doesn't do enough to do that. You got to be serious, because whether it's 32 trillion, 36 trillion, 40 trillion, at some point, interest on the debt is going to outpace every other category we spend here on Washington, D.C., and that's not going to be well for the people, no matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're rich or you're poor, you're black or you're white. It's not going to work out for anybody.
You know what I think is sort of, quote, cute, and I use that word sarcastically, is that the suspension is until after the election 2024, so that no member of Congress is going to have to pay for his vote either way come November 2024, or even the president for that matter.
No, I totally agree with you. And if you're going to talk about, you're talking about specifically suspending the debt ceiling until the next lame duck session after the presidential election. If it were me, there would have to actually be a number on how much debt we're going to allow Janet Yellen to go to the bond markets and actually borrow on behalf of the United States government. There should be a number on that. Number two, it should be very clear that members of Congress, both parties, should have to deal with this. And I understand the elements of and the dynamics of elections, but we're talking about the fiscal health of the country. So if you're going to go down a road where now the fiscal health of the country does not have to be answered by the people who who come up here and are elected to serve, that is a much larger political problem that I think the American people need to suss out, figure out, and send people to Capitol Hill that can do that job.
Congressman Byron Downs, thank you, sir.